coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut.
Back in 2015, and a young lady who works for me, direct, was on the task force. She was a US Marshal. She was a team leader, and she worked in the Long Island division of the task force, not in New York City, but out in Long Island. And there was 2 marshals and three to 4 local cops that began to bully her and pick on her, and then they finally would ignore her and blackball her, and it just escalated to where they started to sexually harass her. One guy actually grabbed her and was groping her. Another guy actually physically assaulted her.
All right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I'm your host, Eric Levine, and I am coming fresh out of Lackland Air Force Base. It is, I think it's July, 5th today? Today's July 5th, and I am here with Robert, and I'm going to butcher your last name, Ledogar?
Ledogar. That's okay.
Ledogar. Dang, I knew I'd get close. I was hoping I'd nail
call
it
me,
first time.
everybody, you can call me Led.
Led? Okay.
Led.
I can do that. And he is formerly with the US Marshal. We'll get into that. Give you guys a quick update. I have to do my military time every year. I do 24 days straight. So I had not booked any podcasts for July because I was nervous. I didn't know if I'd have a good internet to be able to do it, and if I'd be able to bring my equipment with me. I just wasn't sure. So I left it all open all of July. Well, I didn't plan far enough ahead because normally I'll have all those podcasts already recorded, put out, and ready to go. Well, I recently promoted to sergeant, so I'm on midnights, and I was unable to do that. So here we are. I put out a feeler. I said, hey, anybody that can do a podcast, kind of impromptu last minute, and Led was the first one to reach out, and it was like, hey, I'm down. I got a good story. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, shit, I remember this. He actually reached out to me prior, and I was very interested. I just realized that I didn't reach back out to you, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
So, first and foremost, Robert, you were US Marshal, but everybody knows the format of the show is we want to know your background, like what led you up to there. So where are you from? What's your education background? Do you have any family in law enforcement, anything like that?
Well, hey, Eric, no, I don't have any family in law enforcement. I'm from Queens, New York, as you can tell from my accent.
I was going to say, I don't believe you. That accent is terrible if you're faking it.
You think I sound like I'm from Georgia or something, right? I'm down south.
You're not even close, sir. That's as New York as it gets.
No, I'm trying. I'm trying to slow down my speed and my talk, but it doesn't work. But okay. I'm from Queens my whole life, and grew up in a small town in Queens on the water in New York. It was awesome. Had a great childhood, but what led me to law enforcement was in high school. I already knew I was going to join the military, and I went to the Navy, and I became a master at arms, which is, the military police of the Navy. And, but before that, in high school, I would sit down every Friday night with my dad, and we watched Miami Vice.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the best cop show ever on TV. I mean, it's so cool. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be Sonny Crockett, drive around in the Ferrari and the Scarab, and
that boat scene when it's coming across the water, the sun's coming off. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. What do you think inspires the Hawaiian shirts?
Yeah, but you're from Texas, man. You're in Texas,
I'm originally from Michigan.
not too much ocean there in Michigan,
No, well, I mean, the
Well,
Great Lakes are like an ocean, but they're a really
But
cold ocean.
yeah, you'll be ice skating on them.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Even in the summertime, it's like Lake Superior, you do not get in
It's
that. Yeah,
no,
it's freezing.
I,
But yeah, you're right.
I went,
Magnum PI, there was another good one.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
But I wound up going to boot camp in Chicago to Great Lakes
Yeah.
in
That's cool.
in like September to December. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And you think I could handle it being from New York and going to that. So I'm like, this is a
Not
whole
off the
different,
lake.
no,
Yeah.
different
That
type
wind.
of cold.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because that's that heavy, damp, cold.
it
Yeah.
just goes right through you.
Yeah.
It's like razor blades cutting your face. It's just
Yep.
unbelievable.
I can't believe I was ever a cop in a cold state. Like looking back on it now, because I was a cop in Michigan for a little bit. I was a cop in Montana for the Air Force. And I just look back now that I've been a cop in Texas, and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, you can't use your fingers half the time. And it's so depressing. The weather is always gray. Everything's dirty.
It's always, yeah.
I hate it. I hate
I
just
know.
thinking about
I know.
it.
I hate it. Well,
No.
I did 7 years in the Navy, and then
Okay.
I was a military police, and then I was a military police investigator, and then I became an instructor the last year of my time in the Navy, and then the Marshals were recruiting, and I put in for them, and I knew I was going to get picked up because they were looking at all military guys and girls to sign up, and with a background in it. So I got called, and I was an idiot. I said I wanted to go back home to New York when I didn't even realize I could have went anywhere in the 50 states and been a marshal.
That's a federal job.
Yeah. And here I was so stupid. I went back to New York and went to the Eastern District of New York, which is Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I did my whole career. I had a tough career. Worked some major cases, and that was it. My whole purpose to get into law enforcement was because of Miami Vice, and I was going to go after the bad guys, and make a good career out of that. But foolishly, I didn't have a Ferrari or a Scarab. I had a
Right.
I had a Dodge Durango and no boat.
Did the US Marshals at the time, did they require a degree at all?
Yeah, it was either a 4-year degree or the military program that I was part of, or 3 years specialized, experience. But fortunately, I going right from high school into the Navy, you get all these different training and classes and courses you take. So I generated so much college credit toward my degree, and then I just had to take a couple of classes here and there, and I wound up getting my bachelor's in criminal justice through the military, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then going through marshal school and criminal investigator school, you generate a lot more credit as well, which just adds to it if I wanted to go further. But yeah, I got my master's, and it was great. The best thing in the world was joining the military. I regret not staying in the reserves. I really do. And
yeah, I did my active time. I was gonna say I did my active time, and I actually got out, and about 6 years later, I was seeing the writing on the wall, and I was like, shit, I shouldn't have got out. I wonder if I can still get back in. And I went and talked to a recruiter, and I signed up that day, got back in.
Yeah, I did it. I had a lot of the guys I was with in my academy class, they stayed in the reserves, and some did real great, man. Some went from being enlisted to officers. But then a lot of us just, said the hell with it. We're not doing the reserve game. And I regret it today because it would have been a solid another pension coming in.
Yeah.
But, I did it for I think 2 or 3 weekends, and it was in New York, and the unit I was attached to the guys were just terrible.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can't take orders from some of these people that, were never on active duty, and they're just, complete government tools. I couldn't do it. So I gave
Yeah.
up on it, and I wish I would have bit my lip, and
That's the
stayed in it.
beauty of what I'm in. I'm in the IMA reserves, which stands for Individual Mobilization Augmentee. It's a fancy way of saying rather than being attached to a reserve unit, like a traditional reserve unit, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year, I'm not attached to that. I'm attached to an active duty unit. So when I go, work, I'm working with active duty guys. So they're doing it 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And I show up and I'm the weekend warrior, so to speak, except I do all my time at once. I do 24 days straight, and just try to help out wherever they need help. Usually involves me training. I'm a trainer, so I teach like police use of force and taser and combatives and all of that stuff, handcuffing and you know how the military police stuff goes. You got some 18-year-olds in there that had no intentions of being a cop. They just didn't score very high in the test. So
yeah,
that's where they end up going. And so you teach the ones that are looking to be taught, and you just kind of get the other ones to skate by. But it's fun. I like it. It's when I come here and teach, they're like, "Oh, we're being taught by a real cop."
right.
Yeah. So I keep getting connections.
The unit I was part of in New York, there was only maybe 3 or 5 of us that were real cops, but we all met at this administrative building in Brooklyn, and then we would have to go to Connecticut to do our active duty because that was the nearest Navy base there. And it was in Groton, Connecticut. And when we got there, they were like, "Okay, just stand posts at the front gate," And this is well over 25 years ago, but it's changed since to today, where you're doing better things. When I was trying to do it, it wasn't organized at all. It was just thrown together, and then you would go to a base, and I'm like, they're just putting us anywhere for 2 days, and that's it.
Now,
so I can't do it.
So when you transitioned over to the Marshals, what was the training like? Just the basic training for the Marshals.
In the beginning, it's a lot of physical fitness, and the instructors were all non-military people, and they were gym maniacs. They were runners, and they were into exercising, and they tried so hard to beat us down. And you're not beating a bunch of guys and girls that are in their early 20s that just got out of the military.
Yeah.
You're not. I don't care how much you train. You can't.
We already know the game.
And you can have us in the push-up position for 3 hours, and they did, and we got to do 1,000 jumping jacks and push-ups and sit-up. You're like, all right, and then run for 5 or 7 miles. But you run in a pack, so you're like, half the time you're walking because the guys in front of you are slow. So it's like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
And then back then it was just a lot of classwork, lectures. It wasn't as sophisticated as it is today in the training academies and the police academies, that they have better technology where they can teach everybody. Back when I went, we didn't have no cell phones. You didn't even have laptops. We're all here. I've worked on wonder to help them using a typewriter to fill out forms.
Right.
And
that's old school.
The training, real old, and the training manuals were still, like in binders. It was like, you just make copies of it and hand it out. But it was great. It was great training. It was fun. A lot of great times, and the camaraderie is awesome. And then to get into more with the Marshals training, it's a hands-on academy, because you're going to be dealing with, prisoners, fugitives, bad people. So you got to learn how to strip people down and search people, handcuffing, controlling people to walk to the car, to walk from a cell or walk to a courtroom. They teach you how to walk with a prisoner or a new arrest. You have to learn how to process prisoners. You have to, they teach you how to do searches of houses or apartments, even doing a vehicle inspection, doing protection details on judges and U.S. attorneys. And then, of course, the glorious part of the job is what everybody wants to do when they're in the Marshals, because everybody watches it on TV and the movies, is everybody wants to work fugitives and work investigations and, go after the bad guys and all that exciting stuff,
So that's the hard part to get into in the Marshals.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I was very, very fortunate that the majority of my career was working warrants and investigations, fugitives. And you just, you develop a knack for it. I think it was, my personality, my past experience being in the military, being a cop, military police, an investigator, and knowing how to work cases. I just fell right into it, and it was awesome, and then, very terrible was, 9/11, and I'm in New York, and right after 9/11, the Patriot Act comes out, the Congress comes up with funding to support the Marshal Service to create fugitive task force to go after the worst of the worst, to work with the local police and other federal agencies. And New York was the mothership. New York was the first ones to come with that, and it was the New York, New Jersey Regional Fugitive Task Force. And it started right after September 11th. And I was lucky enough to be in Eastern District in New York with Southern District in New York, and they created the task force out of there, and I was part of it. And I spent the majority of my career out of my own district working with the task force as an investigator. And then I got promoted years later, and I was a supervisor with the same group. So, I stayed right there doing it. My chiefs all believed in me and entrusted in me with all the powers to do it. All the guys and girls I worked with, and then they worked for me. They believed in me to do it, and it worked. It worked great, and I had a good time with all that stuff. And we worked some of the biggest cases out there.
So, okay, this is a question I have, kind of just for myself, but
yeah.
And for people listening that may ever want to get in this career field, I kind of understand it a little better. So the U.S. Marshals is in charge of going after known fugitives, people that are wanted by the courts. How do you guys get these targets?
Well, first off, for federal cases, federal fugitives, the Marshals are responsible to go after people who jump bail on a federal case, and also who violate their federal probation. As far as other cases to work from other agencies, like from DEA or ATF or Secret Service, we have these memorandum of understanding that we adopt their fugitive cases. So they work these cases. If they can't arrest a person and the person becomes a fugitive, they turn them over to us, the Marshal Service, and then we go after them and hunt them down and capture them for that agency. U.S. attorneys can delegate cases to the Marshals directly while working with other agencies, and just give it to us, because the Marshals are the best at doing that. But we became the best today because of working on task forces with local cops and other federal agents. And because of that, with the task forces, we get a lot of the high profile major cases from local police. Like in New York City, we get with the NYPD, the Marshals Task Force gets all cop shooting cases, gets all homicide cases, and you work together as a team. But the Marshals have all the powers to go and travel anywhere, and all
Yeah.
the tools of the trade. So
when you guys, when you get a target, high priority target, let's say, to make it more fun, when you get a high priority target, what is the what are the steps for you, like, that you learned over time? Like, how do you start setting up the intel packet or whatever you guys call it to go after a person?
well, a lot of this stuff is already given it to us in a folder, in a case folder. So you start from the very beginning and start researching the person, him or herself, because they've been arrested before. And you look at the past history, everything, they're all the pedigree information. Then you go through and you look to see what kind of property comes back to them: a car, motorcycle, a boat, a plane, a helicopter, anything, any kind of licenses they have. And you dig into that. Then, of course, you look for the family members and the associates and the boyfriend or girlfriend, any children, and just dig into that and start looking more and more. And, the tricks of the trade have already been exposed on TV, because all these people that retire go and tell, they get jobs in the entertainment world and they tell them all. So everybody watched Law and Order. So, of course, the cell phone is the greatest thing to have, or, getting on a laptop or an iPad, because you get the IP address and bam, you just track it right down. But thankfully, the government puts all these restrictions on the government to go after people, and you have to follow all these rules and laws and guidelines to try to get up on a phone or an IP address.
If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. No strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you, or reach out to me, and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime, or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today, or reach out to me. Tell them 2 Cops, 1 Donut sent you.
And, you have to get these search warrants and file complaints and get court orders to do this. And it becomes time sensitive. And, the bad guy is already, a step ahead of you. So, that's the adrenaline part of it, trying to catch somebody. And
Yeah.
You gotta put in the time and the effort. And really, I think the biggest part with the job today is you have to use your imagination. You know, you can't write policies or procedures on how to find somebody. You have to have an open mind, and you have to think outside the box. You have to think like a bad guy or somebody who's down on his luck, somebody, a homeless person, anything. You gotta feel it, and
Yeah.
it's using your imagination to find it. And, my career, man, I was lucky. I had younger people working with me, and these guys and girls were unbelievable. Like they could find anybody, some of the best investigators ever. And I just let them go, do it.
Yeah. Tell me if you found it in my career. Anytime I've been looking for, I'll go with male suspects because it's the easiest, and it's the most typical. But anytime I was going for a male subject, I was always looking to find the last ex-girlfriend or the current significant other, whoever that is, and that was always my end. That's how I would try to find that person, isolate them, talk to them, and then play the, man, like, you got to talk some sense into them. We just want to find them and go down that number. And every time you'd either get a phone number, or you get a location, or you get, well, he likes to go over here. I'm like, it's the perfect. That's my favorite way to go after bad guys, is try to find out who the significant other is or the ex. If you can find the ex, that's even better because they usually don't have a high opinion for the person you're looking for.
And they'll tell you anything.
Anything.
The ex is always looking for something.
Yep.
It's some kind of payback, or it's the bad guy screwed her over big time, either emotionally, physically, or financially. And it's usually financially where they want payback. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was always my favorite angle. And then if you can find, and this is just for the public's knowledge, they wonder like some of the ways that we do things, at least as a local PD, a city PD for me. If the significant other has a warrant, like, you've got a lot of leverage.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah.
Look, you can either tell me or you don't go home tonight. Like, we're gonna book you in on this warrant, this Class B misdemeanor that you've had for 2 years.
And it's probably ran its course on the statute of limitations.
Yeah. This unpaid parking ticket that you got from when you were in high school. So, even though we know full well that we're not going to, and in that, for the public, yes, we can lie. Like,
yeah,
we can. That's just part of it. And you may think that's a dirty trick, and that's police work. Like, there's so many restrictions on what we can't do. The little things that we can do, we figure it out and we use them until you tell us we can't. And then we figure out another way to make the job work and catch bad guys. So,
well, I think, what a talking point, because I think everybody lost focus on, like, it's hard to be a cop. It really is hard to be a cop. And everybody forgets that a cop is just somebody's mom or dad or brother or sister. And as a cop, it's just a guy or a girl, it could be your friend, and you want that person, the poor cop is out there, you calling him or her because something bad has happened. And now when the cop shows up, they don't really know what's going on. It's usually a domestic, right? It's the scariest thing in the world to go to. And there's yelling and screaming, and it might be, somebody could be hurt. There could be blood somewhere. Somebody could have a weapon. There's a million different things that's going on. And you're trying to figure it out. But as soon as you get there, you got people yelling at you, and you're in an environment that you've never been before. And everybody wants you to fix the problem now. They want you to arrest this person, give this person, flowers, clean up the house over here. There's 1,000 things going on. They want you to be a cop, a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, a scientist, an engineer, everything in seconds. And if, you say the wrong word or you take the wrong step, now you have a target on your back.
Yeah.
And for what? You forget that. But you want to take advice from some sports athletes or some entertainers who don't even have to deal with the cops, but they have cops protecting them.
Right.
And they're going to tell you how you should act, how the cops should act. And then, they want you got to dress in all this gear. You're totally uncomfortable as anything. And the weather, the environment chills you right there. And you can't figure things out. You're still going to use your brain, and you just still want to keep everybody safe. And that's what it just comes down to. It's just like trying to keep it safe. And people forget, like you said, cops, you can lie because you're trying to get the bad guy.
Yeah.
You try to capture somebody and make sure everybody's safe. And that's what we all forgot.
Yeah. And the counter that people will bring up is, well, there's some shitty cops out there. And yes, there is. But statistically, it's an insignificant number compared to all the good cops and all the things that, you consider. We'll just stick with regular old cops that get dispatched. That's millions of dispatched calls a year. I mean, I think it's like 300 million dispatch calls in the United States for police. Out of 300 million dispatch calls for police, less than 1% is a use of force that has anything that's sustained behind it. I mean, that in itself should be a statistic that people kind of hold on to when, the next viral video comes out.
Right.
Because nobody wants to see the cops doing their job the way they're supposed to. But everybody wants to see the cops not doing their job the way that they're not supposed to. So that just, you would think that would be a common sense thing. It just doesn't seem to be right now. It's more fun, I think, at the moment to hate on police until the next, major tragedy happens. And then cops and firefighters and paramedics all save the day and do what they've been doing this whole time. And, like 9/11, and everybody loved us for a while. And the never forget thing, I think they forgot. So
right away. People forgot right away. Yeah.
Yeah. So to hold on and it is what it is. We get painted with a broad stroke, and that's why I have this podcast, to kind of try to fight back the best I can and get guys like you on and tell your stories and educate a little bit. I've already learned a bunch about the US Marshals I never had a clue about. So just in the training alone, and then, I like what you said about task force, and I think it's important to pull this out. Yes, the US Marshals are the best at what they do as far as getting fugitives and stuff like that. But it wasn't until they do the joint task force stuff where they learn from other agencies and see you put the best together and learn that stuff, and you get these little tips and tricks from other agencies. I was fortunate enough to work a task force for catalytic converter thefts, of all things. Had a major problem with it, and it started getting very violent. We had a cop that got shot by one of the little cells that were going around. It was an organized crime thing. So then they got a lot of attention. So we had this task force, and man, the tips and tricks I learned just from other PDs. And we were not even talking like, another, 3-letter agency or anything like that, feds. But we learned a lot from each other that you don't think. And now you're talking about, you're mixing federal agency with NYPD and then whoever else was mixed into that group. Man, you guys learn a bunch of shit doing it that way.
Well, yeah. And again, look, I'm very lucky and very fortunate because, being in New York and working part of that task force was awesome. Like, I worked with NYPD detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, and and I argue with other law enforcement guys that when they all say like, oh, my police department's the best. I'm like, man, I worked at the NYPD. Those guys are unbelievable. They're the freaking best. And that's when I was working in the city. And then I worked in Long Island, and I worked with some of the local cops out there from, detectives in Nassau County and Suffolk County. And it was a small departments, but they were unbelievable. And it's one or two or three guys that are just, you couldn't believe what they knew and what they could do. And being a Fed, you don't have them relationships with your police departments. I mean, from the guy in uniform to the chief of police, like there's everybody in between that you can call, and there's backup like that. And they're coming to save you, to be there with you. And it's amazing. And my career has opened my eyes to all that, and seeing it and loving it and appreciating all of it. And, and then it's still even working with the Feds. Hey man, I work, and it's tough to say, man, with the way it is today. And I worked with FBI agents, and, they're in the, they're on fire right now. Nobody likes the FBI. Everybody's bad mouthing them. Let me tell you, I worked with some FBI agents when I was out in Long Island, and they had the MS-13 task force going out, because it was Long Island where the MS-13s kicked off. And these FBI agents, they didn't play the political game. We had a couple of U.S. attorneys working with them direct, and the FBI doesn't want to turn over any of their cases whatsoever. They keep everything. But these agents were like, no way, they couldn't do it. They didn't have enough people to work at all with all the cases going on. So they reached out to me, being in warrants. They were like, hey, we want to turn these cases over to you. We don't want to play the politics. You arrest the guy, but you call us before you leave the house with the bad guy. No problem. They're like, just give me 15 minutes. But I got it. And we did. We'd set it up the night before. I call and be like, look, we're going to hit the house tomorrow. We know the guy's there. We're up on his phone. And they're like, we'll be down the block. Call us after he's in custody. 15 minutes later, you call him, 1 under, 2 under, 3 under. We're here. The house is secured. Come on in. And they would come in, and they're like, did you find any evidence? We're like, oh, yeah, by the way, here's, 10 cell phones. Here's a couple of iPads, some laptops. Here's a gun. They would take over the whole crime scene. They'd be like, we're going to take the body so we can process them. And then we'll see you in a couple hours. No problem. We'll be back at the courthouse, because the marshals run the courthouse.
Yeah.
I go back there now, get everything together for them. When they come in, they call. They're like, we're on our way. All right, bring them to the cell block, and then we would do our job. Bring them in, process them, put them through the system. The agents would go upstairs and talk to the U.S. attorneys and fill out the complaint. And it was, hand in hand. No bullshit. The way it's supposed to get done. But the ones who would complain would be the upper echelons, the chiefs. Oh, why did you call this guy? Or that? Like, stop it. We won today. We got it done.
I was going to say, we're getting the work done. Leave me the F alone. Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah.
And it was great, man, to work like that together when you get the right people in on it to a task force. You do your job. You get it done.
Yeah. So one of the things with being on a fugitive unit, now I've had a taste of this myself, not necessarily a fugitive unit, but we've had suspects that we needed to get, and they weren't high enough priority for our fugitive team. Like, our guys go after, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, stuff like that. Like, that's their way up here. So I was on a property crimes team, so me getting my robbery suspect or burglary suspect was lower down on the totem pole for them. But can you attest to this, as a person who sets up on people and is trying to find them, that the public may be surprised at just how long you have to sit and wait and watch a person, a place, to the point where, like me, I can already tell you the best bottle to bring with you when you're going to be setting up is a Gatorade bottle, because it's got a wide mouth on it. It's easier to go pee in, and it blends in. So I have been sitting in a car and had to piss in a bottle probably 4 or 5 times before we finally saw movement. And that's just some of the things you have to do. Now, that is me at a limited aspect. I can only imagine somebody in the Marshals and how often that happens.
Oh, that happens every day. That is every day. Yeah. And thank goodness I got promoted and I became the boss, because I don't have to go out there.
Yeah.
You know, I could show up, you know, after they were out there for 5 or 6 hours, you know, even though I have to listen to these guys and girls who are grown adults, you know, complaining and bitching and moaning that it was
Yeah.
the end of the world. Like they didn't get picked to play on a football team or something. And,
Yeah.
you know, and then but the best thing about that is, again, the camaraderie. Because when there are a dozen people out there, guys and girls, sitting in different cars, doing surveillance and waiting and waiting and waiting, the joking that goes back and forth and the breaking chops
Yeah.
and picking on each other
Yeah.
is the funniest moments ever. And
Yep.
you never can beat that. You know, it's just great.
Yeah.
And then it's all over within 30 seconds. The adrenaline rush of, you know, seeing a bad guy in the house, you know, go into the house or drive a car on the street and taking them down. And that was it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, when you got whoever's got the good eye on the place that you're watching or whatever, and you hear him, finally the radio chirps up, and you're like, I got movement. And you're like, I'm going to keep playing on my phone because I don't believe him. I don't believe it. Yeah, you got movement. It ain't going to be our guy. And then they're like, I got confirmation it's him. And you're like, oh, shit. And you just start getting all your crap out of the way, all your food, snacks, and crap that you've been messing with. Man, for people that are considering getting the U.S. Marshals, like, I would recommend that you take a look in the mirror. If you don't have the patience to hunt or fish, the Marshals may not be for you, because I think they directly correlate. Because I could sit in a tree stand all day. I love it. I may not even get a deer, but I can do it. I can go fishing all day. I may get skunked, but it doesn't matter. I'm having a good time, and I can keep my mind going. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, if you don't mind smelling like a car air freshener, you know, it's the job. It's a great job. You know,
Yeah,
it's
black
awesome.
ice. You got to blend in.
I mean, it was so funny. You would go into everybody's car and guys would have bottles of cologne in there, like your car. You're like, this is disgusting. They're like, and the people, you smell. Like people, after a while, you just start to smell. Yeah. And the packs of gum and cough drops. It just in there.
You start to know your team so well. Like even on my property crime team, if I got in a UC, one of our undercover cars, and I see a wrapper or I see certain types of garbage in the car, I'm like, damn it, you know, Dowdy was in the car and he left his snuff can in here, or what's his nuts was in the car and he left his, you know, lifesavers gummies in there. Like, you know who took the car, and you're like,
you know, everybody.
Shit out. Yeah. You know them just by their trash. You know them by their piss bottles. You'd be like, you left your piss bottle in there.
Oh, yeah.
I know what type of piss bottles you use.
And that gets done on purpose too, just leaving it in somebody else's car. You're like, what are you gonna do?
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. I used to like taking the Gatorade bottle and just leaving it with like regular yellow Gatorade. But your mind starts to play tricks on you. You see that stuff and you're like,
well, they come out with there's all different flavors now and colors, so you don't know.
Yeah, I know, right? Is that your piss in there? No, it's lemon Gatorade. Try it. Put it in the fridge. Go try it. It is definitely. I think that is one of the parts about, at least for the Marshals or for anybody that's gonna start going after fugitive type work. Like, you have to be patient. If you're a person that has to move around a bunch, and that is not the job for you. There's a lot of intel that goes into that stuff. There is a lot of good investigative tools and things like that to go after bad guys, which is fun if you're into that stuff. I like that personally. I like using all the tech and research tools that we have at our fingertips these days. There's one that's called First Two. That's an investigative tool. I really like it. Uses Google. It pulls up, all possible social media accounts for the person and that you're looking into, and known addresses and all of that through public information. Very cool tool. It's kind of an all-in-one thing. But when I first found that, I was like, this is amazing. Like, and now I'm looking up guys that we've already got captured. I just wanted to see what info it would pull up on people that we already know. So kind of testing its validity, if you will. And it panned out. And I'm like, this is amazing. And turns out there's all sorts of different. There's AI that recognizes faces and
Yeah.
all sorts of. Did you see recently? I saw a TikTok. AI has figured out a way to use your Wi-Fi signal to read a room and give you back like this sonar of who's in, like if there's people in the room. It uses the Wi-Fi signal and bounces it off and creates an image of the people in the room and where they're at.
It's amazing. I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to tell you exactly who
Right?
those people are, because they're going to ping off their cell phone to find out their account and their codes, because it's just going to link through it. It's unbelievable. I mean, when I did it, the only thing we had coming up was Facebook was out, so we would get court orders for Facebook, and you were mesmerized by looking at people's Facebook with putting the photos out there and the videos, and then you could pick things out. And you, like, for us, when we were looking for certain people, we knew, what pizza parlor they were going to, or what club they were at, where
what they drive. The cars that they're rolling around in. Like, you've got on paper, like, oh, he drives a Prius, and then you look, and every picture he's in, there's a black Mercedes, and you're like, where the fuck is that car at? That's not anywhere on here. And then you inevitably, I always tell people, I was like, if the majority of the people we dealt with were really smart, we'd be hard pressed to find a lot of these people. But business is good. It's booming because they are not smart. They do some dumb stuff. Most of them posted on social media.
Thank goodness. And I give thank goodness that the cops today have that on their tool belt to hunt people down and go after them, man. Thank goodness that bad people are stupid.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely right. And I don't mean stupid intellectually or anything like. I mean stupid as far as, like, if you're going to do crimes, there's certain things you just don't do. One, don't put yourself out there in public holding, like, fistfuls of money and the guns that we're looking for and all of that stuff.
All the stolen property right here.
Yeah, you can see it, like, in the background. You're like, hey, isn't that property crimes, ain't that the weed eater we were looking for? And he's offering lawn service all of a sudden. That's his new side hustle. So, well, sir, okay. I'm trying to think if there's any more US Marshal specifics. Like, another thing that interests me in kind of what you were saying was just the science behind escorting people to and from. Like, I think this is a side of the house that searching and transporting is highly what's the word? Undervalued. I think that I work for a major department, so it's we don't take that for granted. We got 1.2 million people in and out of our city, so we deal with a lot of people, and it's important to search, and we understand the value of that. But some of the smaller departments that don't have to deal with that stuff quite as often, I think they kind of get ripped off in that training and the seriousness of it, because that is when things can go wrong and can go wrong fast. I think we saw a video recently of a guy in the back seat of this might have been Chicago of all places. I think they would search better. But had a gun, like, after he had been searched and then passed off. So I take it very serious, especially searching. I take searching very serious.
Yeah, it's a big part of the Marshal Service too, is transporting prisoners. And, it's a shame because the guys and girls doing it, they're exhausted. They're up earlier than everybody else. Then they got to, travel to get to work. Then they got to go get the vehicle. It's either a van or a cage truck or car. You have to check that out because it's really just sitting in the parking lot of the courthouse. So you got to look at it real quick, make sure there's nothing laying around, that a screw isn't loose, or there's any kind of thing that could be a weapon. Then you have to go to the jail, and you have to, go through the whole system at the jail to go get the prisoners and pick up 12, 24, so many. And you sit there and you're patting down these people, and then you're putting handcuffs on them, a belly chain and leg irons. And, now you have to walk them down because you can't walk like a normal person when you're restrained. And then you have to help them into the vehicle and get them in a seat, make sure everybody's situated there. And then you have to drive from someplace in Brooklyn to another place in Brooklyn during rush hour, where trust me, the people in New York traveling to work don't give a shit if you're a U.S. Marshal in a van with prisoners. They're giving you the finger. They're going to spit out your van. They want to get to where they're going. Lights and sirens don't mean anything in the city. So yeah, it's real serious, and it's two guys in a vehicle moving these people around. And some of these bad people are real bad people. Don't just think they didn't pay their taxes. You got somebody maybe killed somebody, and they're going to jail for the rest of their life. And the only way to get free is to get past you.
Yeah.
So they're thinking always and watching always.
Yeah, you got to you got to put yourself in really vulnerable positions sometimes to search, to cuff. If you're not very careful of you could be taken out real quick.
It's very easy too. Yeah, because you're down. You're blind. Because you're bending over. You're looking at somebody's feet or legs and touching them down there, and the guy's got the upper view on you. You can go down.
Yep, and it's not the first time they've been cuffed that way, so they already know the procedures a little bit. They know the typical way that you're going to cuff them, so they know the timing. And like you said, you're not dealing with innocents. You're dealing with some of the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
especially the U.S. Marshals. So, yeah, you got things to consider, folks, if you plan on being a U.S. Marshal. It seems very simple. You're like, hey, you just put cuffs on them, and then you walk them around. Yeah, it's more complicated than that. You got to be cognizant of where their knees are. You got to be, when you bend down to go start cuffing an ankle, like, where are you going to do it from? You going to do it from behind, or are you going to do it where it's from convenience? Like,
even before you handcuff them, you're searching the person, going through their waistband or their collar. People put, a razor blade in there. That hurts like hell getting cut with a razor blade,
Yeah.
It hurts getting the paper cut, on an envelope. It hurts.
Yep.
So imagine that. And you're a person, your reaction is different than everybody else. You could cause a scene and go down, something happens. And now you're out of the fight,
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the Marshal, it's one of the most dangerous aspects of police work is going after fugitives. That's a lot of times that's when officers get killed, because there's procedures and stuff that we follow when we, knock on doors and stuff like that. Just depends on the level of danger the person you're going after is, but how much of a flight risk they are, all these different things. But I know at my department alone, we've had at least one in the past 10 years that's been killed during a warrant search or serving a warrant on somebody. So it's dangerous. So if you're considering that career field, Jesus, just trying to make you think of all the different angles to think about. And Led here, he's got, how many years did you do?
I did 25 years, but to go on that talking point of being dangerous and shooting, like, it's not the TV show and it's not the movies. And, again, in New York, we had a film crew in our task force, and they made that TV show called Manhunters on A&E.
Oh, really?
And it was at our task force.
Oh,
so yeah, nice. I did a couple episodes of that. It was fun.
Okay.
But it's a pain in the ass. It's to do that part of it. And some guys loved it, and they did it for a couple of years. But it's dangerous. So now you're going out with a film crew, and you got to worry about those people that can get hurt. And they want to film the most exciting arrests there are.
Right.
So you're like, and we're going like, look, this isn't, we're gonna roll at 8 o'clock. We're going at 4 a.m. where things are happening. And we don't have time for you to charge your camera up.
Right.
We're going.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. And it's like you said, it's not the TV show, it's not the movies. And you're going to get into a fight. You're going to get I've been beat up before. I got the shit kicked out of me. I got broken bones, I've been in 4 shootings, and you just can't.
You shot
and been shot at.
Shit.
So been stood behind my partner who was holding a shield, and the shield got shot.
Oh, it did its job. That's beautiful.
It did its job, but let me tell you, that's the scariest sound you'll ever,
I bet,
ever go through. It's right there, and that's
just
the
like,
reality.
You're like, don't shoot low, don't shoot low. I want to get hit in the ankle.
And you go there, and like for you guys in the South, man, you're so used to people having guns on them.
Yeah.
Like us in New York, you're like, the only one who had guns were the cops, man. Like, and, we're coming into a house, and the bad guy has more guns than us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And shooting. And
I think, so this goes into the cultural differences in policing. Like for us, I think that I and more people down here who are used to people having guns have a better sense of reading body language. Because we are so used to those that aren't. I can tell you, even, the majority of our gun owners down here that carry are law-abiding citizens. Like, there's no issues. So I can read the body. I don't know how to explain it without, it's one of those cop things. I just
right.
know. And the ones that I can see are nervous and constantly checking and, patting their side or patting their wherever they're carrying, and it just stands out more because they don't seem comfortable around a gun, or they don't seem comfortable around a gun when I showed up. So something about the police presence makes these body language things start to stand out more. But the more I think about that thought, and then I'm thinking about being in New York, I guess it would stand out pretty easy too for anybody carrying, because nobody else carries except for the police for the most part. So,
and to go into that, I mean, we did one case was, and the guy was ex-military, but was a perp, so the military thing went out the window because you're a legit perp. You're with a gang, drug dealer, and you shot somebody. And we found a guy in a basement apartment. And however we made entry, I know it was like the second or third person in there, and the bad guy got up and ran out the back door to the backyard, and there was 3 guys in the back covering the back, and he had a 9mm, and we came out, and it happened within seconds. There was guns pointed everywhere, and then the crossfire, we all would have been dead. But the bad guy, we found, got him. He was down on the ground, didn't shoot. Took the gun, but then we went back into the kitchen, and we remembered him sitting at the kitchen table before he ran. And on top of the kitchen table was an AK-47 with a good dozen magazines loaded. We were done. You're done.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, it was a no knock, took the door in. Because we knew what we were going up against, the intel was solid. And you daydream about some of that shit, man, the things you did. In the beginning, it was an adrenaline rush. It's great. You're with the greatest guys in the world that I'm working with. It was a great teammates. But now you think back, you're like, holy shit, we all should be dead, and thank goodness nothing happened, and instead I would get, people would yell like, oh, we had to bag all this evidence and inventory. I'm like, really? This is, that was the complaints, that was it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're welcome. You guys are all welcome. I gave you a great case, great arrest. You got great evidence, great job, and that they bitch about the paperwork.
Yeah. I'm just, if I get a gun off the street, I'm happy. That's my favorite thing to get is guns. I love it.
And that's all I wanted. I would tell people, bad people on the street, and I'm like, hey, man, I'll let you go today if you give me somebody with a gun. Because it's in New York. That's what we wanted. Yeah. And, I held true to my word, man. We would arrest people for probation violations. And I would talk to the U.S. Attorney Office, and I'd be like, let this guy out. He gave us a better case, and let's work on something. And you do it. And
you build credibility with bad guys later on down the road.
Yeah.
It's very undervalued by police. They think that, newer cops, I think especially, they don't realize, you're going to run across the same shitheads all the time. So you need to invest in relationships with them so they can trust you. I know that I said earlier that we can lie to people. Like, yes, we can, but you have to be skillful and when that's appropriate. Because if you burn a bridge with the person that you cross all the time, that's valuable information you're letting go down the road if you think of the bigger picture. So I learned that from some vet cops very early in my career. And, you know, luckily I didn't get burned by it because I listened.
Yeah.
So,
and thank goodness for old timers, old hairbag cops. Thank goodness, man.
Yep. I had one pull me to the side. He's like, man, listen. He's like, I know you got what you were looking for. You got the bad guy. You know, you bluffed him. It worked. But he's going to figure it out. And then when he does, and you have to deal with him later on, you've got nothing. You got nothing with him. He ain't going to talk to you. It's like, but if you shoot him right, you tell him up front what's going to happen, he's more prone to help you out later on down the line because you helped him. Even though you still arrested him, you helped him because you were truthful with him and you gave him that respect and all that. And I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. I get it. Me, I was, young cop. I'm just looking for the quick lick. But, yeah, I'm in for the long haul. I like the investment side of things. So
listen, it's the easiest thing in the world to get somebody a coffee and a donut.
Yes, right.
It's the easiest thing in the world, man, and it goes a long way.
You're damn right. Or a smoke, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was every morning where you grab somebody, you're like, hey, you want a coffee and Dunkin' Donuts? Let's go.
Yep. I don't smoke, but I carry a pack of cigarettes with me at work because I know its value. So
big time. Yeah.
All it takes is one. Oh man, just one. All right, cool. Let's go. Now tell me where Pookie is. Where he been? All right, sir. So 25-year career, and sounds like you had a good time up until the end. So let's talk about the big story. The other big important part of why we decided to do this pod.
Well, that's fine. We have to come to the real part of the talk here. But before that, I lived by a great quote by an awesome person. So everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Mike Tyson.
The smartest man in the world.
That's right.
I hope one day I meet him. And that quote is said between me and my old chief, who to this day is one of the greatest people in my life and had been there from day one to make sure he saved my life. And what happened was, when I was a supervisor back in 2015, and a young lady who works for me, direct, was on the task force. She was a US Marshal. She was a team leader. And she worked in the Long Island division of the task force, not in New York City, but out in Long Island. And there was 2 marshals and 3 to 4 local cops that began to bully her and pick on her, and then they finally would ignore her and blackball her, and it just escalated to where they started to sexually harass her. One guy actually grabbed her and was groping her. Another guy actually physically assaulted her. Then they started to mess with her personal property at the office. And it even led up to one guy stalking her and trying to cut her off the road when he was driving. It was just insane. It was just crazy. And she brings it all to my attention, and I confront the people. I confront the supervisor of those guys. And, of course, it turns to shit. We got to tell our chiefs. We have to report it to Internal Affairs. But then the great minds of headquarters leadership in any department, these geniuses decided to have the task force investigate themselves of these allegations. So they picked a special investigator from within, and they didn't let internal affairs investigate it, but then they came back and said, we're going to investigate office culture, not sexual harassment. It's office culture.
Okay.
So that goes to shit, of course. And these guys who the young lady made a complaint against, they turned around and said that who they had worked with for years, I was a racist, I was a drug dealer, I stole money, I cheated on my wife, I was a bouncer at a bar, I filed for bankruptcy, I stole identifications, I failed to report incidents, and the list goes on and on and on. I committed all these crimes. So my internal affairs, because the task force was so powerful, started to do the investigation. And the leadership at my agency could oversee the investigation. And the task force is funded by Congress. So you don't want this type of investigation to come out to the media, to Congress. You don't want to hold anybody accountable. So what they wanted to do was remove the girl and remove me. But my chief and my marshal were not going to have that. And they pushed forward. But, I'm a supervisor. I'm a low-level manager. And I was going up against, the executive staff. And investigation after investigation. And they get you on, conduct unbecoming, failure to follow policy, whatever they can dig up on you, and they keep you under investigation until it just crashes down on you. And that's exactly what happened. And it wasn't until April of 2020, during the worldwide pandemic, everything shut down, that I had 2 months till I could retire, that they came back and said that they can terminate me for conduct unbecoming, and they did so. So I was fired for defending a girl that worked for me in the whole scheme of it all. And they jotted down a bunch of administrative infractions for violating a code of professional responsibility throughout a 5-year investigation of things that nobody ever filed a complaint against. They just internal affairs just started to dig and look at me. So I'm terminated, and, I got fired from the job I loved, and they knew I was going to retire. And, but because of the guys and girls I worked for, everything, they came to my defense, and people wrote letters of support in the hundreds against the Marshal Service for doing this. But they didn't want to hear it, and it was easier to get rid of me and then to say that they fixed the problem that this girl had generated, that none of this would have happened if I was a better supervisor. But I was never there to supervise this mishap. So you go through all that, and I have now an appeal against this kangaroo court called the Merit System Protection Board. It's through the government. And I'm appealing to get my marshal retirement. And I'm appealing to get back pay and my attorney fees, because I have case law, the truth, the facts, evidence on my side. Let the government, you sit on it for years. It takes years to get through anything. So while that's all going on, I connect with so many people. People hear my story. I have the National Police Defense Foundation that created a legal defense fund for me, and they support me over the Marshal Service, over these internal affair investigators, you know? So my story gets out there. People start reaching out to me and helping. Like, it's amazing that you get other cops that come and help you, have been jammed up and know what you're going through. And then they listen to me talk and what happened and my whole story, and I share information. And it was these two FBI agents who got jammed up, and they told me how to use the government against the government to get my retirement.
Okay.
And I don't want to leak what I did, but I didn't break the law.
Okay.
And I was able to go through the Office of Personal Management, and I was able, thank goodness, to get my full 32 years for my retirement. I have my full pension.
Nice.
But like I said before, I'm trying to get my Marshals retirement. I got my government retirement.
Yes.
Of service, all added together.
Yeah.
So that, thank goodness, you know, I got that. And while this is going on, and I'm like helping people now, telling them like how evil it can be, the police corruption that's out there. It's out there, and we all see it every day on the news. And I'm not here to be a hater or to be mad about anything, you know, but to help the other guys or girls that have gotten jammed up for no reason whatsoever because they did their job. You know, they were, you know, scapegoated or, you know, targeted, or it's a witch hunt. And it's everything I went through. And if I wasn't telling the truth, I wouldn't be here talking today. There's too many people out there that know all the facts of my case and are there and telling, you know, me to tell it. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I got my retirement. I can talk now, you know, and let me tell you what happened and what to do and how to stay focused and how to stay in the fight. And it's like any police department and any police department, any cop will tell you internal affairs suck. You know, for me in the Marshal Service, it was very personal. I called them all out. And for the Marshal Service, internal affairs, they could never do the job that I did. And they were jealous about that. And, you know, they were admin cops. They sat in an office all day. But to go after people because you can, and to dig up stuff because you don't like the person is horrible when you took an oath to follow the truth. So we know that these cops have made false statements about me. Why didn't you go after them? You know, you let a lot of people retire, but because I was an easy target, they could just let it linger on me. And I try to tell people, you know, to stay focused, to stay clean. Don't go to drinking, taking drugs or medication. I did none of that, you know, and I'm Catholic from New York. I'm not religious, you know, I'm not phony like that, but you got to stay healthy. You gotta keep your body moving. You got to keep your mind thinking, because the demons get in your head and you start to believe the bad things that the general counsel or internal affairs wrote about you. But then you have all your friends and your coworkers and your family and your supporters that stand by you and your lawyers that tell you the truth, and they pick it out of how they're so wrong and how you're so right, and that you should be proud of your career and the things you've done. Because if I was that bad, why did you let me do it for 25 years? Especially if it was 5 years of investigations and you found nothing. Except administratively, you know, you come after me. So that's the gist of it right there. I mean, I can go into
I'm
for
just
3 weeks of talking about this, and
I'm just why wouldn't they let you retire? It's 2 months. It would have been easier probably paperwork wise than firing you.
No, what's really it was very personal. I mean, I've been nose to nose with the number 2 guy at my agency, and I called him out. You know, you never can call out your boss because they have all this power
Yeah.
to get you. And I did, and I do it again. You know, they're cowards and they're slobs.
I just don't get the motivation behind it. There's clearly, I mean, it's not even just internal policy issues that they had with this female you're talking about. It's criminal issues that you had to worry about. Why? Yeah. I don't know. I would more pride myself if I'm going to get rid of people. I'd more pride myself in getting rid of, corruption than manufacturer corruption.
That's good words, but you would think that too, and you would think that when these people manufactured these stories about me, that they would have came in, and I was a boss. I was a supervisor of warrants. I was in charge of evidence and informants and money, but they never came and did any audit. They didn't do an inspection. They didn't review the evidence. There was nothing. You said I was taking drugs, and you never even gave me a drug test. And you had you could have cleared me hundreds of times.
Yeah.
They didn't want to. They wanted it to linger because it was very personal, because I called a lot of them out. I went nose to nose with them and said the words I had to say to them and call them the cowards and the slobs that they are. But it happens. It happens every day. And it's still going to happen until we have better leadership, until we have honest people to hold everybody accountable. You could have held me accountable. I'm not an angel. I'm not perfect. But to fire me, and it was very personal, 2 months before I could retire.
Yeah.
And everybody saw it. And I laugh at what they say about me today. I mean, the deciding official, who was a chief, she's a GS-15. She disregarded every letter of support that every chief I ever worked for. She acted as if she was the smartest person in the room. And to disregard those other people. So are you calling them all liars?
Yeah.
That they didn't know me? And when I read what she writes, because it's very personal, her words are, the Marshal Service has no faith in you performing at a satisfactory level to continue to do this job. So for that reason, you are terminated. So when I saw her and I was able to say back to her, I agree with you on that statement, but what you fail to know is that I perform at an outstanding level, well beyond satisfactory. And if you would have did your job and reviewed my evaluations for the last 20 years, you would have saw I've been outstanding at my job and I've done great things. But no.
Yeah.
So you're a lawyer and you're corrupt.
Yeah.
And they let it go. And what happens is, for us federal agents, we have no union. We have no one to back it. So
Right.
I had to go get my own lawyers and pay for this. And they think the government, they want you to exhaust all your money. They want you to give up and quit and walk away. Or they hope that you kill yourself and you're gone from this problem, because the government can let this linger forever because they have all the time and the money in the world. And that's what they do.
Damn.
And there's not a lot of people like me that can continue fighting the way you fight. And it's really sad that a lot of good guys or girls that have been jammed up get screwed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do because they don't have the money to fight back.
So where's the girl now?
She retired. And as much as I defended her, she's defending me.
Okay.
She's out there talking. She's out there telling people the story of what happened and of how much I helped her and I saved her life.
Sounds like she needs to be on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah. She's
Just-
she's in Pennsylvania and Florida. She jumps around.
Let me know if she's interested. I'm all about networking. She'd be great to have on. I'd love to hear that
Definitely.
perspective. Love to hear the perspective of a female U.S. Marshal.
Oh,
That's
for
gotta-
sure. I'll
That's got to
definitely.
be rare in itself.
She'll definitely
Male-dominated-
talk.
Awesome.
She'll definitely.
Okay, I'm down for sure. So what's the current status as far as all of this has gone?
Well, like I said, my appeal is still pending. It's sitting before the court, which is a good thing.
Okay.
I'm retired fully. I work privately for a private international organization doing security consulting. And I'm right.
Is it CONUS or is it like overseas?
Overseas being Canada.
Oh, okay.
I go from the States and I go into Canada.
Okay.
And writing a book. But I'm not writing it. The lady who's writing it is from California. She picked up on my story. We connected, and she's writing a book about my career, the work I did, and the case and the story itself, and how people stick together. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about the letters of support that people did for me for. So it's great. It's a great thing.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
brother, you got anything else that we haven't touched on that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think, dude, I'll come on your show anytime, man. This was a good talk. You know? And
I like really hitting on the education part. I think that's what most people get a kick out of because we're cops. We can tell our stories all day long. Like those are interesting people like that, but very few people take the time to get into the who, what, when, where, why of the actual aspects of the job. And you know, you could hear I could hear from one U.S. Marshal, and hear from another one the next week, and we're gonna get two very different perspectives.
Totally, you're going to get totally different stories. And you know what's so funny is I hit back on that where it's hard to be a cop, you know, and it's hard to be a U.S. Marshal. The U.S. Marshal, it's a multitasking agency.
Yeah.
You're doing and people forget that because people get into this business, they become disillusioned on what the job is. Like I worked in a district. I worked in the 8th largest district in the nation in Brooklyn. You're rocking all day. I mean, guys came into work at 5 a.m. in the office, and they were there till 11 midnight. You know, working, and it from anything, working investigations, working fugitive investigation, threat investigations. It's doing protection details. It's moving prisoners. It's serving process, and people forget that because they get into a certain unit or division or section. And they think that's all they do for the agency. When they forget, well, like, you have this badge. You're the whole thing. The whole circle around the star is the job. Not just this one little aspect of it. You know, you got to...
Yep.
I'm glad you're an investigator, but now you're going to go stand in front of the courthouse and make sure nobody walks in with a bomb for 3 hours. You know?
I don't care how fancy you think you were in your investigative office, but you still got to do the grunt work sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm learning all about that now that I'm a patrol sergeant.
That's hard stuff, man. That's why, like, I don't mind going back and forth with everybody. Like, I worked in New York. Like, listen, until you've been to Rikers Island, I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
Try going to Rikers Island to get one prisoner. You could be there for 12 hours. And let me tell you, I'm daydreaming right now, and I can taste the smell of Rikers Island. And it's horrible.
I bet.
And it's the best jail in the world.
Oh, really?
It's unbelievable.
Really?
The jail is squared. It's just, nobody's escaping from Rikers Island.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. Well, sir, well, I appreciate you being on the show.
Eric, thank you very much, man. I'm glad. I'm glad I saw your post this morning.
Yeah, my plea for help. I poorly planned. And I thought for a second there that the internet signal was not going to hold up, but it seemed to smooth out whatever adjustment I did.
Yeah.
Because we cut out there around 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it came back, and I think I was on the actual wrong Wi-Fi. Like there's 2 Wi-Fi showing here, and I think I was on the wrong one. So I thought after that, it smoothed right out. So when people listen to this podcast, you may hear some choppy audio at the beginning, but it smooths out.
Well, thank goodness you're not on active duty then.
Yeah, I know. God, it'd be miserable. I'm so glad I'm not. I can't wait till this is done. 24 days. 23 now. 23. The countdown continues. So
hey, it pays off in the end, brother.
It does. It does.
It pays off.
But all right, sir. I will let you go, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much, and I'll definitely get you in touch with Dawn.
Sounds good.
Get something going.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.